Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. When Chair Murr laid out his bill yesterday and ran through Texas's leadership on voting rights, he talked about milestones in 1975, 1987, 1991, and 1997. When Texas was leading the way after the 1965 Voting Rights Act, passed by President Lyndon Baines Johnson, and instead of damning with faint praise, I will offer him a happy birthday today. Because if it wasn't for his courage, if it wasn't for his willingness to act, we would not be living the fullness of this American experience, where Latinos, African Americans, people of color could fully participate in the democracy. And it's only been since 1965. I was born in 1968. Well, that makes me old. It's also given me an opportunity to observe the progress that we've made so that people of color could fully participate in this American experience, have a place at the American table. And it hasn't been that long. Heck, women have only had the right to vote since about 1920, 1921. And that's just not a long time. And so in constructing that timeline, Chairman Murr, in going through 1975, 1987, 1991, 1997, that seems like recent history to me. And then I juxtapose that against the last decade. And I've been here for 9 terms, and I have observed over and over and over again these erosions of the right to vote. And the commonality there has been when Republicans took full control of Texas government. I don't think anybody's proud of that. Voting rights used to be bipartisan. In fact, they were bipartisan in 1965 when Republicans joined President Johnson in pushing for voting rights for Latinos and African Americans. They were bipartisan as recently as the presidency of another Texan, George W. Bush, who got unanimous Senate support for voting rights reauthorization. We find ourselves in a very different place today. And for those of you who have publicly stated that somehow the quorum break was some political stunt, that might have been for some, but it wasn't for me. I believe this was a righteous cause. I believe it was a just cause. I believe it was an American cause. And a cause where people like me have had to fight just to keep that right to vote. So that people wouldn't come onto this House floor and invent cases of voter impersonation to try to justify their erosion of the right to vote. They wouldn't invent voter purges that sought to kick 100,000 U.S. citizens off the ballot, off the rolls, and try to politicize that. Try to refer those same U.S. citizens for prosecution during the failed voter purge. And those 10 findings of intentional discrimination against this body in the last decade alone, they don't go away. That is still there. And that's the backdrop that we find ourselves with. But I want to turn my attention now, as Chair Turner did, to the eyes of the nation, to the eyes of Congress. And when we met in the Roosevelt Room with Vice President Harris, she asked us, please give us more time. And we broke quorum not once, but twice in what I believe is a just cause, an American cause. And we not only bought the time, but what we have left in front of us are 90 days. And I want to focus on those 90 days now. To President Biden, to Vice President Harris, to Leader Schumer, Speaker Pelosi, to Republican senators from the state of Texas, we have 90 days. Once this bill passes, we have 90 days from the end of this session to act. The clock is ticking. And there's an opportunity to rekindle that spirit of bipartisan cooperation on voting rights that has been lost, where voting rights is now a partisan issue. There's an opportunity to take action on federal legislation that is going to protect the voting rights, not just for millions of Texans, but for millions of Americans, disabled, African Americans, Latinos. And so the clock is ticking. And we watched during the debate yesterday, we watched people come up and make heartfelt policy arguments, engage in, for the most part, civil debate about these policy differences. And I know the people of Texas are watching, but I also know the people of this country are watching. And they saw what were very good arguments, in my view, that were tabled, that were defeated with, in some cases, little debate, and in some cases, pure dismissiveness. But I am not done. I plan on continuing this fight during this legislative session. And during the quorum break, I was buoyed by a letter that I received on June 7, 2021 by LBJ, Lucy Baines Johnson. And on her letterhead, she bemoans the current situation in Texas, where she says, "Alas, in recent years, the heart of this great act that her father had passed had been compromised. This summer, legislatures across the country are diminishing opportunities to our vote. And sadly, Texas has been one of the most egregious states in eliminating voting opportunity for all our people. Those who once joined us in the battle, in the fight for social justice, now seek to block it." So to Lucy, I say thank you. To Lyndon, I say happy birthday. And to the nation that's watching, I say 90 days. That's what we've got. Thank you, and God bless you, and God bless the great state of Texas.